Good afternoon, Portland Trailblazer fans, and welcome to the inaugural edition of the Blazersedge VideoCast. I'm Dave Deckard from Blazersedge.com. It is a pleasure to be here with you for the very first time via the magic of YouTube. This is part of the SBN YouTube revolution, and we're glad that Blazersedge is playing our part. Now, when we thought about doing a videocast, we tossed around some ideas, but one seemed pretty clear. It's been a compacted season. There's been nothing but game after game after game, every day, every other day, which means all year I've been doing nothing but writing previews and recaps. And that means that I'm way behind on your mailbag questions. So, at least for the first few editions of the videocast, what we're going to do is answer your questions on the air via the magic of video, and we'll see how it goes. So let's start in together with our very first one. This comes from a gentleman named Marcus, and it says, Dave, what happened to the Blazers? I'm not talking about 7-2 not working out. I'm talking about losing to Washington, to Minnesota, coming out flat against Denver. What is wrong with this team? Well, Marcus, there are a few things going on here. I think one you can title under the general heading of chemistry. From the very beginning of the season, we talked about the Blazers not having the right skill set to mesh with each other. You've got players with duplicate skills. You've got players with skills that don't fit together. And that means even though individually they're really talented, there are some big holes in their game. Now, early in the season, it was a lockout summer. Nobody was prepared to play. The Blazers kind of slid by with that. But as the season progressed and the scouting got better, teams caught up with them. That means 7-2 became, 4-3, and now 3-4. And as the playoff stretch starts out and teams are really jockeying for positions, it's only going to get more difficult to sneak anything by them. Plus, you have players with different agendas. There are a lot of players on this team whose contracts are expiring or could be expiring. That means that things like touches and minutes are really important to them, and when things don't go well, it takes on added gravity, which means that it's hard for the team to get together. Also, the team doesn't have the kind of forceful leadership and clear talent to get past these kind of intangible difficulties. If we were talking about the Lakers with a Kobe Bryant who would whip everybody into shape, with an Andrew Bynum who is talented at his unique position, we would talk about maybe being able to ride through some of these bumps with sheer ability. But the Blazers just don't have that. Things have to go right for them in order for them to succeed, and things are not going right. Finally, and remember always that the Blazers are 8 or at most 9 players deep, and those 8 and 9 guys are only good for 12 to 14 minutes a game. That means that they're playing a short roster and have been since the beginning of this very strenuous season. As the season has progressed, that's taken a toll, and I think we're seeing it game by game. And unless the Blazers make some kind of trade that magically infuses them with that kind of star talent or ability that's going to transcend these things, we are in for a difficult second half of the season. I think they can overcome it, but what they're going through right now is no surprise. Our next question comes from Phil, and Phil says, Dave, what are the prospects of a big trade at the deadline? Gerald Wallace has trade value, right? And the Blazers can't risk letting him opt out for nothing at the end of the year. Do you think he might be traded, or is someone else on the block? Well, the way things have gone, Phil, almost everybody should be on the trading block for this team. I think obviously LaMarcus Aldridge and Nicholas Batum are the two names that you think twice about. Everybody else is either an expiring contract who might not be back or marginal talent. Therefore, I think the field will be wide open in a couple of weeks for the Blazers to make a move. That said, do the Blazers have the talent to get the players they need to make a huge difference this year? I do not think so. Do the Blazers have the combination of talent and contracts to get a long-term difference maker for this team? I kind of doubt that too. Therefore, I believe the trades you might see are going to be of one of two varieties. Either a stopgap where you lose a player that you just don't like right now and you know is not going to be back next year for a guy who's going to ride you through the second half of the season and then you kind of dump him. Or you might see somebody traded to a playoff team who needs, say, a Gerald Wallace or a Jamal Crawford to make their run more solid and might have some young players or draft picks to trade back in return. I do not think the Blazers will be interested in taking on salary. I do not think the Trailblazers will be interested in taking on pretty good talent who have non-expiring contracts, because I think they don't want to lose their cap flexibility and trade flexibility over the summer. When you hear from the front office, they say, we're pretty happy with our team right now. I don't think they're that happy with their team right now. That's code speak for we want to maintain our flexibility in the years to come, and unless you knock off our socks with a deal, we're not really going to make a move. That said, this trading deadline is closer to the playoffs than the norm, and there are more games left after it than is the norm. Therefore, I believe you are going to see some bona fide stars traded this year around the deadline, perhaps more than usual, because you get slightly more value out of that acquisition now than you did in years past. Therefore, I think this is going to be more like a Major League Baseball trade deadline than the standard NBA trade deadline. I just don't think the Blazers are going to be a huge part of it. Let's move on to a question from a guy named Razor. Fine name. Your mom was feeling sharp that day, I suppose. You don't seem to like Jamal Crawford at point guard much. Why? He can shoot, he gets assists, his defense isn't that much worse than Raymond Felton's. Well, yes and no. I think Felton is better defensively as a point guard than Crawford is. I think, honestly, this question came a couple weeks ago before the Crawford experiment at starting point guard yielded 3 losses in 4 games. And I don't think Jamal is safe defending real NBA point guards. I think he has some passing ability. He certainly has dribbling ability, and he can hit his shot, both of which the Blazers desperately need from the point guard position right now. But when push comes to shove, Jamal Crawford is not a natural point guard. And here's the thing with the Blazers. When we talked about trades, we just talked about them being talented enough to be good, but needing things to go right and being on the cusp of being really, really good, but not quite there. In order to get anything out of this team, you have to maximize its talent totally. You cannot afford to waste a single player. Now, Crawford may be decent at point guard, but that's not where he's best. That's not where he's won awards. That's not maximizing his talent. Simply put, the Blazers cannot afford to get less than 100% from him. That's exactly what happens when you start him at point guard. So no, I'm not in favor of Crawford at point, not so much because of his ability or inherent skills, but because it's not what he was born to do, and the Blazers need all the help they can get. Let's take a look at this question. Dave, Blazers Edge has had it out for Raymond Felton since the beginning. You panned the trade that brought him here. You gave him that ridiculous cupcake nickname. I know he's not playing well, but give him a break. He's in a new system under a point guard unfriendly coach with questionable teammates trying to play the hardest position in basketball. Stop hating. Signed, Early. Well, Early, I admire your courage. I admire you for being countercultural. And I would point out that even though we've not given Felton very good reviews, we've gone out of our way to say when he's had a good game and when he's done subtle things that people don't notice. I've maintained all season that while Felton may not be playing well at point guard, he is still the best point guard the Blazers have, bar none. And he should get the bulk of the minutes there. They just don't have a lot of other options right now, and he's the guy to go with. However, to be fair, just in case, I will tell you, I don't like that cupcake nickname either. We never used it officially at Blazers Edge. It came out of a picture that we posted and caught on, but I don't call him Cupcake. Cupcake is a gooey, soft dessert. That doesn't seem like his style. People like cupcakes. People don't like Felton right now, so it doesn't really fit. So therefore, in the interest of fairness, we asked the crack Blazersedge VideoCast staff to come up with alternative nicknames for Felton to run by you. Now, if you think any of these stick, you can go ahead and use those instead of cupcakes and give kudos to the Blazersedge VideoCast staff. Here we go. Here's what they came up with. There's the baker. He makes a ton of turnovers. Yeah, there's nothing like being obvious, guys. Good going there. There's the stormtrooper. He shoots a ton and always misses. Haha, nice Star Wars reference. We'll give you points there. There's Raymond Burr, no doubt in response to his offense. That's fantastic, guys. Everybody over the age of 70 is cracking up right now. Perry Mason FTW, right? Here's my favorite, Aunt Flo, because he shows up once a month and he makes people complain a lot. All right, we'll give you credit for that one. And finally, we have the finish line, because every time you see him, you know that your run is almost over. So in the interest of fairness, if you want to use any of those, go ahead. We can leave the cupcake behind us. Next question. Dave, this is probably a stupid question, but what is a pick and roll? I hear people talk about it all the time, and I don't know. Signed, Rob. Well, Rob, I'll tell you, don't be embarrassed. I actually get quite a few questions on the basics of basketball in the mailbox. This is one of the things that we want to cover on the VideoCast because we're uniquely suited to do it here. If I try to explain a pick and roll on the blog, it takes 1,000 words and still doesn't get the concept across. But here through video, we can show you instead of tell you. So let's come on over here to the high-tech Blazersedge Video Court and let's take a look. Now, fancy outfits have telestrators. We have construction paper and a construction paper hoop. That's the way it goes. And we have our wonderful players here. We have white on offense and black on defense. It looks like today it's hobbits versus golems. Now, notice that our hobbit, even though he no doubt has mad skills, cannot escape the golem one-on-one. Every time he moves, the golem moves with him. He can't get a clear shot unless he's got mad lateral quickness, and we all know hobbits lack that. So we need some help. So we're going to call in a big man. Here's Gandalf. He's defended. We'll talk about that in a second. And we're going to have Gandalf set a pick or a screen. Now, in order to set a pick, all Gandalf has to do is come out here on the court and stand. He has to remain motionless. He cannot move back and forth or it's an illegal pick and he'll be whistled for an offensive foul and a turnover. Neither can he stick his elbows or knees out because that is unfair. He will also get whistled for that. Frankly, what Gandalf really should do is take his arms and put them downward and cover anything he doesn't want hit because defensive players tend to be pretty nasty to guys setting picks. So here we go. Our hobbit is going to bring his defender right past Gandalf's screen. Now, when we get to this point, as long as the hobbit stays nice and tight on Gandalf, the defender can't get through. We forced him to make a choice. He either has to go over the screen, which means away from the basket, like this. Now, if he does that, he has to run around Gandalf's pick, which leaves our hobbit free to make a quick turn and a dribble straight to the hoop, hopefully for a layup. This is not optimal, right? So our golem might decide to go under the screen. In that case, he has to go clear around two players, leaving our hobbit free for an open jumper. Either way, our golem is in defensive trouble. Now, there's a third option for the defense, which is called the switch. In this case, the big man defender slides over, takes the short way to guard the hobbit, and Gollum is left watching Gandalf. Now, either way here, you have a mismatch. The hobbit is quicker and smaller than the ring wraith, might be able to get around him, right? But this is also where the roll comes in, because Gandalf here can roll away from his defender. You don't want to roll toward, that just puts the defender right on top of you. You want to roll away, which leaves the defender on his back, right? Then after the roll, he cuts to the hoop with the defender trailing. Now, if our golem or our hobbit has got enough separation over here, look what happens. He takes the ball away from the ring wraith, and fires a pass right in there, and Gandalf gets a sick jam all alone, and all Gollum can do is watch. That's why it's called the pick and roll. So what you want to do, get nice and tight on your screener, right? Make sure that the guy can't get around. Make him go over, make him go under, or make them switch and then take advantage of the mismatch. And that, in a nutshell, is the pick and roll. Now, there are 102 different variations to this. We'll talk about picks and screens and other basic basketball plays more in other podcasts. Keep those kind of questions coming too, because they're fun to answer. And hey, if you don't know, you don't know what to watch for. Let's get one final question here. This comes from Joanne. Joanne says, Dave, you've been a Blazer fan through multiple eras, which means a lot of disappointment. Now we have the end of the Brandon Roy era before it even started. We have Greg Oden getting injured repeatedly. We have poor play from the team. How in the world do you cope? Well, thanks for caring, Joanne. It is a lot of heartache being a Blazer fan, as we all know. Sometimes you do need some coping strategies, and I will let you in today on my favorite. 2 words for you, girly drinks. That's right, girly drinks. Now, I know you've seen Tequila Man on TV talking about what happened to real men nowadays. Well, you know, slow your roll there, Templeton, because it's not fair to talk about real men when you kind of look like a rat in a black suit. I mean, what was wrong? Steve Buscemi wasn't available for the commercial there? I mean, no offense, but I'm just saying you're no Channing Tatum. And besides, if I took a shot at tequila every time Raymond Felton made a turnover or Jamal Crawford attempted a bad shot, I'd be dead by the second quarter. Now, we could go for beer, but you know, wives and girlfriends don't really like beer that much. Makes your breath smell, gives you a gut. So the optimal answer is girly drinks. They're fizzy, they're light, they're colorful. It's the comfort food of cocktails. And it's really easy to do. Let's say it's the third quarter, the Blazers are playing lousy, 6 minutes to go. You grab yourself a glass full of ice. You grab yourself some kind of diet fizzy yellow drink. Pop it right open there, pour some in. See? Nice and easy. Okay, about half full like that. Got that? Now you reach down, you grab the peach schnapps. Now you can use any kind of fruit flavor. I like peach, it's pretty good. All right, and then you grab yourself some nice raspberry pucker. Let's see, a little bit of that. Uh-oh, Felton just missed another one. Better pour some more. There you go. Now look at that. It's nice, it's fruity, it's red. You can have 2 or 3 of these in the second half and still be able to write a coherent game recap. So remember, if you're down and out and in the dumps because the Blazers are playing poorly, if Greg Oden has another surgery, another superstar retires, a trade doesn't work out, whatever it is, just grab yourself a few bottles, have a girly drink, and everything will be okay. Cheers to you. We'll see you next week on the Blazers Edge VideoCast.